Pollock, Kincaid, Koons. There's simply too much hatred in my heart to choose just one artist to hate on, so instead I must choose an entire category. Today I will be discussing the wretched genre that is corporate Memphis. Let's start by defining what corporate Memphis is. Our most trustworthy source, of course, Wikipedia, defines it as an art style named after the Memphis group that features flat areas of color and geometric elements. Now, this can sound very vague, but you'll probably recognize it once you see these. While the art style is known for these flat areas of color and geometric shapes, the people in the image is really what makes the style known. While some stick to traditional proportion sizes and realistic skin tones, many use colors we wouldn't normally see in dramatized proportions, mainly the body being much bigger compared to the head than it should be. The Memphis group that the style is named after was an Italian design and architecture group, active from 1980 to 1987, and although they didn't create the corporate Memphis style, it was named after them by Wired magazine because they believed it had resemblance to the oeuvre of Memphis designs. This style became popularized when Facebook created Alegria, an illustration system which we have Buck Studios and Zoana Herrera to thank. And unfortunately, this style has been appropriated by about everyone. Companies like Hinge, Google, YouTube, and many more have used this style for a variety of things. It's everywhere we look. Let's start with our basic formal analysis. For this, we'll be taking a closer look at Google's image. Let's start with the elements of composition. We have contour lines separating our figures from the background and the other objects we see in the foreground. We lack any lines we would see that would give a piece perspective, as this work is solely 2D. Our picture lacks the natural forms we would normally see, and our figures are made of very geometrical shapes. We can see some curves within our forms, but even those are exact. Sticking on this topic of anatomy, I would like to point out what I am assuming are the knees of the left character. It feels as if they're hiding something, maybe a soccer ball under their pants. The knees are something I notice immediately, and something that very much irks me. It's inconsistent with the other characters who are given either baggy pants or more proper knees. Value talks about the hues, shadows, and lights of the image, which is something this style as a whole lacks. Artists put great value on value, and perhaps this is the reason why so many people, such as myself, hate it. At first glance, there appears to be only two notable uses of shadow in the piece: the shadow on the arm of the middle character, and the shadow in the armpit area of the right character. As this style tends to simplify their characters, we don't get any facial details, except for the nose and the ear on the left character, which means we lose all these wonderful shadows that would have given the piece so much depth. We have no depth in the face of our characters. We also have none of the folds or textures you would see with clothing. The artist chooses to add dark lines to represent the folds of the baggy pants, but I believe the equal line weight could read more as a messed up pattern. I feel as though there would have been better ways to demonstrate these folds in this style, with different line weights being implemented, and also the weight of the line changing in each fold to portray a more accurate representation. The artist has chosen to stick with a consistent color palette, something I enjoy about lots of pieces. Relating back to the shadows, we notice that the only shadows included are one that have a color already being used in a different part of the piece. In case I worry the color palette may have restricted or even scared the artist from even including these shadows. As previously discussed, the knees really bother me. I feel as though they are way too round and big. Nowadays, people can turn this style their own, but most art we see tends to play with the proportions by making the head so small compared to the body size. This bothers me a little bit, but I think overall there's a much bigger issue with the proportions of the people. While researching corporate Memphis, you will learn that the style mainly started with giving the characters unrealistic skin tones, like purples and blues. But many companies started giving more realistic colored skin tones to add diversity to the characters seen on screen. But I feel as though this is quick, cheap cop-out to make companies feel like they're portraying diversity. Having 3 different flat colors for skin tones and a stereotypically feminine and stereotypically masculine character on the same piece isn't going to cover everyone because of the proportions of the characters to each other. These characters are drawn in a way that appears to make them look about the same height and body type, but that's something that is unrealistic to the real world. People are different heights, shapes, and body types. And I think that the artist who makes pieces in this style can often be lazy and claim that everyone looking the same is a stylistic choice, rather than making unique characters that look like real people. And everything I said is just about this one image on a Google site. Many of these themes are often repeated in other works of the same style. Overall, I think the popularity of this style, bleeding into corporations, has made it unoriginal and boring to look at, despite whatever bright colors they may use. The proportions are often way off, and it feels like all the characters are made from the same base, not truly representing all the different looks of people despite their attempt to do so. I think that the lack of facial features on many of them is an overall loss, along with how many pieces don't take advantage of shadows making these geometrical weirdos look much flatter than the aesthetic calls for.